There was smoke rising from the harbor. People actually stepped closer to the water to get a better look. No one ran. That innocent curiosity was the last mistake nearly 600 people ever made. It was April 16, 1947, in Texas City, Texas. At the time, this was a modest, busy industrial port right on Galveston Bay, its docks stacked high with cargo bound for a rebuilding post-war Europe. It was a bright, normal morning. Longshoreman Henry Mikeska had worked these docks for 11 years. Before leaving the house that morning, he kissed his wife goodbye and told her he'd be home for lunch. 2 blocks away, a 24-year-old volunteer firefighter named Julio Ruiz hopped on a truck heading toward the harbor. His daughter had been born just 6 weeks prior. He and his crew were answering a call for a small, totally routine cargo fire aboard a docked French ship called the Grand Camp. Because no civic alarms were raised and no evacuation was ordered, the townspeople treated the smoke as a morning distraction. They stood on the pier and watched the fire grow, simply because no one had the information to tell them to leave. The Grand Camp was carrying 2,300 tons of ammonium nitrate, but as you can see from how it's stored here, official records classified the chemical simply as fertilizer, routine, seemingly harmless cargo. The crisis began quietly, with a small, manageable fire breaking out deep inside the ship's cargo hold. Hoping to smother the flames without ruining the rest of his profitable cargo, the ship's captain gave a standard order: seal the deck hatches and pump steam directly into the hold. This is a 2D cross-section of a ship's hull. The captain's order pumped steam into the sealed environment, but instead of suffocating the fire, the steam trapped heat and reactive gases. This caused an exponential spike in temperature and pressure inside the hull. A standard fire suppression tactic was the exact catalyst required to transform a resting cargo ship into a 2,300-ton pressure cooker bomb. Down on the docks, terrifying physical anomalies started to manifest. The extreme heat radiating from the steel hull caused the harbor water surrounding the ship to literally boil. Then, the smoke billowing up from the deck shifted from a standard gray to a highly unnatural, toxic shade of orange. Despite these glaring, severe chemical warnings, onlookers continued to gather at the edge of the pier, pointing and watching in innocent curiosity. At precisely 9:12 in the morning, the timeline ran out. The Grand Camp violently detonated. The kinetic output of the blast was staggering. The shockwave knocked 2 small airplanes out of the sky, generated a 15-foot tidal wave, and was felt 150 miles away in Louisiana. On the front lines, the human cost was instantaneous. Every single one of the 28 responding firefighters, including Julio Ruiz, was vaporized. This photo captures the sprawling scale of the devastation, with leveled infrastructure and massive black smoke plumes engulfing the city. But the nightmare wasn't over. As survivors searched the ruins, a second ship loaded with ammonium nitrate, the High Flyer, caught fire from the debris and exploded at midnight. The safe distance the morning onlookers believed they had was a total illusion, instantly shattered by a chemical reaction that erased the physical geography of the port itself. When the fires finally burned out, the staggering final toll stood at 581 confirmed dead and nearly 5,000 injured. Men were left walking through skeletal, twisted metal wreckage. The subsequent investigation shifted the focus from visceral horror to an intellectual autopsy, revealing a systemic chain of negligence regarding ammonium nitrate. The chemical had been improperly packaged in cheap paper bags and legally allowed to be stored right next to highly flammable materials. The uncontrollable kinetic energy unleashed by these storage failures was strong enough to throw this massive Longhorn 2 barge completely up onto the shore. Coupled with the physical hazards was a complete failure of information. There were no mandatory warning labels required by law, and no specialized fire handling protocols existed for this chemical. Total failure of regulation left the captain and the fire department completely blind to the threat, ensuring that a manageable fire would lead to the destruction of the city. This mangled civilian car stuck in the debris mud stands as a symbol of the sudden, violent interruption of ordinary life. Henry Mikeska had promised his wife he would be home for lunch on Wednesday. She waited for him until Thursday. Hundreds of people casually walked to their own deaths that morning, simply because the people in charge lacked the information necessary to tell them to run. The most terrifying disasters occur when deadly science is disguised as everyday routine. If this story stayed with you, press like. Subscribe to Dark Archives for more true stories that history tried to bury, and hit the bell so you never miss one. Share this with someone brave enough to watch alone tonight.